Have you ever heard of that guy who defies the boundaries of the impossible? Well, throughout my journey, I ended up becoming that guy for many people, including you. I remember how you mentioned this several times on the podcast. To hear you here now is really exciting to me, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity. But, the question is, how did I become this guy? Well, when I was younger, I definitely wasn't like that. Complete opposite. I was the type of person who would run away from any challenge that came my way. However, few knew that there were two versions of me. Now, many label me as the one who does unbelievable feats, like thousands of push-ups or absurd runs of miles. But what they don't understand is the journey that brought me here. And that journey is a story that few know. It felt like my true self was imprisoned, suffocated by an insecure stutter and constant fear, a shadow of my father's repeated attacks. To survive, I constructed a false persona, a mask that I wore to camouflage my true self. It was as if I was dancing in a suffocating environment, trying to ignore the pungent odor of falsehood that surrounded me. But over time, this charade unraveled, and I realized that I was not only fooling others, but also myself. It was an intricate journey, a transformation from a terrified boy to someone pretending to be brave. But how did I get to this point? The process was long and painful. It goes back to my childhood, when my father, a powerful and intimidating man, inflicted his dominance with fists and cruel words. Born as the first black baby in that hospital in Buffalo, New York, I carried the weight of a lineage marked by violence and the relentless pursuit of power. My father, who owned skating rinks and bars, dealt with a network of prostitutes that stretched from Canada to Buffalo. He was an ambitious man, a true master of manipulation and exploitation. I vividly remember one fateful night when his uncontrolled anger escalated to a new level. A terrible incident where my defenseless mother was brutally attacked, dragged down the stairs by her hair. I was just a 6-year-old child, but that moment was burned into my mind forever, an invisible scar that shaped who I became. It was as if I was destined to follow in my father's dark footsteps, but at the same time struggling to find a light within the darkness that surrounded me. Throughout my existence, I have been haunted by a constant fear. An inner voice, an insistent whisper, always pushed me to act, even when my will was denied. There was something dark about that voice, something that forced me to face the unknown, even as my heart cried out for refuge. I remember the first few times when I was still just a child. My father, an austere and imposing figure, firmly imposed his will. At 6 o'clock, without fail, he would summon me for a lesson in discipline, a lesson I didn't ask to learn. And, little by little, these episodes became a painful routine, a years-long journey permeated by the bitterness of fear. My education was neglected. My father saw no value in the classroom, only in the business he managed. A skating rink, a world of twinkling lights and ephemeral laughter, was his kingdom. As the sun set, I emerged from the shadow of my own insecurity and found myself immersed in the frenetic activity of the night. Years passed, and I grew up among the shine of the tracks and the smell of gum stuck to the floor. The hours stretched into the early hours, as my exhausted brother and I found refuge in the office, while my mother worked tirelessly at the bar until the first light of day. But even after all that, when the shadows of night gave way to the light of day, I still faced my own demons. The desire to follow a different path, to find a purpose beyond the familiar routine, burned inside me like an insatiable flame. I then decided to look for a way out through the Army, the Air Force. I dreamed of being one of those heroes who jumped from the sky to rescue the lost, the desperate. But my dreams were dashed by the cruel reality of a miserable score on a crucial test. And so my mother and I found ourselves, for a time, living in the recesses of government-subsidized apartments, struggling to survive in a world that seemed to conspire against us. But even in the darkest of places, hope finds a way to creep in, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, we begin to rise. From $7 a month to a modest $230, each small victory was an achievement, proof that, despite all the adversities, we were still capable of moving forward. And so, one step at a time, we got closer to the tomorrow we so longed for, even if the path was full of shadows and uncertainties. At that time, poverty was a constant shadow over our lives, but despite financial difficulties, my mother found a way to invest in my future. She sacrificed what little we had to provide me with the opportunity to receive tutoring once a week. For 4 precious hours each month over the course of 6 months, I immersed myself in intensive studying for my final test, the ASVAB test, a crucial test for joining the Air Force. Perseverance and sacrifice paid off. After 3 attempts, I finally got the much-desired approval. Upon joining the Air Force, I was faced with a different reality than the one I had known. There, I realized that it didn't matter where you came from or what you had been before. What mattered was what you would become. Instead of trying to tear apart their identity, they worked to shape it, to build something lasting and meaningful. Today, I look back and see how wrong many people are about motivation. They see it as a permanent solution, when in fact it is just a fleeting flame in the darkness. The true journey is not only driven by motivation, but by discipline, by the ability to persevere even when the fire within dies. Nothing is permanent, I repeat to myself, and that's where many go wrong. They wait for motivation as if it's the key to everything, when in reality it's just a small part of the puzzle. The true skill is in learning to act even in its absence, in learning to exist and persist, regardless of the circumstances. So yes, it is a difficult journey, but it is also a journey of self-discovery and growth. Motivation can ignite the spark, but it's determination that keeps the fire burning, even in the darkest moments. And it's this lesson that I take with me every step of the way, knowing that, in the end, it is resilience that will lead us to success. Draco expressed an undeniable truth, a metaphor shrouded in mystery about discipline and motivation, as essential as breakfast to the mind. He compared the discipline process to an electrical circuit, where each element needs to be connected correctly, otherwise there is a risk of explosion. He highlighted the importance of free space in the mind, without which discipline becomes lost in chaos. His direct and frank approach reveals a take-it-or-leave-it mentality, where consideration of other people's feelings is secondary. He argues that it is necessary to convey the truth, however harsh, for the long-term good, even if it may cause temporary discomfort. His words are a reflection of his own learning journey, where he shares lessons he has personally had to learn. The enigma extends when he mentions having seen a recent video, possibly attributed to his interlocutor, suggesting a deeper connection between his words and shared experiences. David expresses his frustration towards the individual impersonating him, but more significantly, as the video unfolds, he begins to feel compassion for the imposter. He reflects on how it might have been different if he had taken a similar route in the past. David has always stressed that with success comes challenges, something he doesn't fully believe in. He challenges the conventional idea that success brings with it acceptance and smuggling of your story. Instead, he advocates personal responsibility regardless of achieved status. He shares his own struggles with his latest unfinished book and the criticism he received about the sequel to the original. However, he firmly believes that he has overcome this pressure and that his second book is, in fact, superior to his first. He encourages others to overcome self-pity and focus on achieving their ambitions, even if that means defying others' expectations. Although many see him as harsh and incisive, David reveals that there is a philosophical depth to his thinking, an aspect that many may not fully understand.